guys, today I am running the precision depth roller. I'm going to refer to it as the PDR for short. And this is a BCS implement that goes on the back of your tiller, brings the tiller up high so you can run it really shallow, essentially functioning as a tilther or a power harrow. Obviously, a bit more ballsy than a tilther, but a lot less expensive than a power harrow, and also a lot more light than a power harrow. Now, truth be told, I've actually been running this machine, this implement, for a while now. We got this maybe about a month ago. This machine is awesome, and the thing that I like about it the most is that it's solved the maneuverability problem that I see with the power harrow, in that power harrow is a very, very heavy implement and it's hard to turn around. One thing for us on an urban farm is we've got tight spaces and shorter beds, so we end up doing more turning around in places that are less than ideal to turn around in. So you're gonna see me run this thing, and I mean, it's great because it's a lot cheaper than a power harrow, and it allows you to have a dual purpose from your tiller because it can also function as a harrow. And the other thing that I'll say about this that I really like is that when you run it on till mode, when you put the roller up all the way and you want to till deep, it actually does a better tilling than before, because that roller finishes the bed very well and it flattens it out and also just presses it down a little bit, which is, I think, is totally perfect. So what I'm going to be doing on these two beds is two things. I'm going to actually be rototilling in traditional rototill. I'm going to go deep, and I'm going to till in a bunch of our old microgreen flats. People often ask, what do you do with the flats? We compost them and they end up back in our soil every couple years. So I'm going to be rototilling this in. Then I'm going to finish with a top layer of good compost, and then I'm going to run a shallow tilth with this, with the precision depth roller, and finish the beds that way. So you'll kind of see two things at once. So just look at the way the beds are finished. You do not get that with the normal rototiller with just the flaps on the back. You don't get this even of a bed. That's the thing that's so cool about it, is that sometimes when you're tilling, you'll hit a rock, and this plot actually has a lot of rocks in it, or you'll hit something like maybe a deep root and it'll knock your tiller a little bit. But with this roller on the back, I find what ends up happening is that it prevents you from going too deep. So if you hit something, if it recoils, it won't recoil up and then down and then dig you deeper, and that's often what happens. So this is a kind of a way of, it eliminates a step when you're tilling, because sometimes when you're in uneven beds, you'll have to go and re-rake them. But in this case, you don't, and so I really like that. One thing we did with this to increase the maneuverability or make it easier was we eliminated our quick coupler, the BCS quick coupler, which is a great thing to have if you have a lot of implements to change. But for us, this is the only implement we're going to be using all season, because this is a tiller and a harrow. Well, we're mostly just going to be using the PDR. We won't really need to be worrying about, and that's what I mean by harrow. We won't really need to be worrying about changing implements, so we figured why not bring it in, because that quick coupler increases your length about 3.5 inches long, which means that your leverage point is a lot heavier and it makes it harder to maneuver. And so now we're closer to the center, the turning point being the wheels, that when I go to the end of a bed, I can turn around really easily. And that was actually one of the things that I found in the early prototypes of this, is that we had the quick coupler on, but the PDR was also a lot heavier. They were using different types of materials then, and it was really difficult to maneuver. And that's when I said to them, hey, this isn't really any easier than a harrow. What can we do to make it easier? So put in some lighter materials, but certainly bringing that quick coupler out has made a significant difference. Now there's another thing I want to show you guys, what they suggest you do when you buy one of these is you take your tiller tines and you turn them around inside so that the shank isn't coming out. It's actually going in, and what that does is, if you look at my beds here, it keeps dirt from flying out of the sides, and that was actually one of the things that I criticized about this thing early in its development, is that the shank was just blowing too much dirt into the walkways. So what they originally did was, instead of just doing something simple like that, is we had these rubber curtains that you stuck on the tiller, and that was just a whole other to-do. But now we don't need that, because you just turn the tiller tines around and then Bob's your uncle. What I'm gonna do now is sprinkle some compost onto these beds, and then I'm not gonna rake them. So I'm gonna kind of sprinkle it as evenly as I can, and then I'm going to jack up the PDR and then mix that compost into just the top inch or two of the soil, just like the tilther or the power harrow. So that's that, and you can see it makes a very clean finishing till. I'm super stoked about this thing. It's so versatile. It's lightweight. You know, I love the tilther. I like electric tools. I think I would love if all tools were electric, but unfortunately that's just not the world we're in yet. Elon Musk hasn't made an engine for the BCS yet. Maybe he will someday soon. But I would way rather use this than the tilther, because it's actually less work. I mean, if I have to go and prep 1 or 2 beds, yeah, I'll probably keep using the tilther. But if I have to do anywhere around 4 or more beds, I'd rather just bring this, because I can just do 1 up and down pass. With a tilther, it's only 18 inches wide, right? So I've got to do 1, 2. I always usually end up doing 4 passes, so it just takes more time. And you've got to use a rake to even out your compost, whereas the roller on the back of this pretty much does it for you. And you know, it's something that's kind of funny, and I don't know if it was intended by the folks at BCS America, but the roller kind of ends up taking up some compost, like it gets filled with compost. But the neat thing about it is that it actually helps it distribute that compost. So what happens is the middle part of it will fill up first. You might run into a pile of compost like this, and it'll kind of soak some of it up in here, and it'll just end up spreading it around, because the roller will fill up, and then as you just run the machine, that stuff will it'll fall out of the roller. So I kind of doubt that was intended. If it is, maybe one of the guys from BCS America will chime in and let me know that was what they intended. But it's kind of a funny unintended consequence in a good way. Okay, so I think you guys understood how this thing works. Let me just explain some of the mechanics of this. It's really simple, and I love it. So this is called a Josephine lever, and this is what allows you to bring this thing up and down. And the other really cool thing about this is that when you jack it all the way up, you actually lift the tines. Like, I can actually move the tines on this. You can see if I move the machine that the tines aren't touching the ground, which makes it easier to move this thing around as well, so that when you have to wheel it somewhere, you don't have to lift it up, so that your tiller isn't chewing up whatever you're going over. Whether that be a clean sidewalk. You know, for us as urban farmers, we've got other areas that we need to maintain, so it keeps things cleaner. So basically, it's just mounted to the back of your tiller. There's sort of a curtain of rubber at the back of the tiller that actually goes in place of where the original flaps are on the back of your tiller, and then the the roller just goes on after that. So it's really simple. But again, you know, the thing you have to do is make sure to turn your tiller tines around. And I'm sure BCS America have instructions on how to do that. I don't think it's that complicated. But that certainly makes a difference, because it means that you don't have dirt continuously going into your walkways. And that's what happened with the original prototype. I actually had 2 original prototypes, maybe even 3. But we kept having a problem where dirt kept going into our walkways, and then our walkways ended up getting higher and higher just as a result of more use. So that is the BCS America Precision Depth Roller. Link will be below. Check this thing out. I love it. It's going to be a staple on the farm, preventing us from having a power harrow and replacing the tilther, really. Talk to you guys later.